Is a face-off between New York Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and New York Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer in the cards? Apparently, AOC is not ruling that out in a new interview.
So joining us now to discuss the chances of that are newlywed and Democratic strategist Jennifer Holdsworth-Karp and Senior Director of Policy at the Conservative Partnership Institute, Rachel Bovard. Ladies, it's great to see you. And Jen, congrats. So happy for you.
Great to see you guys. Congrats, Jen.
Good morning. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
So Jennifer, you're kind of the perfect person to ask on this topic. You're not a huge AOC fan, I understand. But I know you're involved in one of the campaigns to primary a sitting New York member of Congress, Carolyn Maloney, that came very narrowly close. And actually, there was some dispute over whether if the votes had been properly counted, your candidate may have prevailed. How hard of a landscape is it to overcome in these primaries? What do you make of AOC's odds if she were to enter this race ultimately?
So it's exceedingly difficult to overcome in a state like New York, more specifically in New York City. There's a lot of entrenched politics there. And yes, we took on a sitting member who was particularly egregious in some of her policy, proposals in the past. She had spent a long time as an anti-vaxxer, and even we couldn't overcome that. Obviously, there were some major questions about how the votes were counted. It was unfortunately right at the beginning of the pandemic and all of the changes that happened around COVID. So that added an extra layer there. But even so, Chuck Schumer has such a storied career in New York. But here's the other thing, I saw an article about a week ago where there was some type of party boss who, was telling Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez that she shouldn't run. And I pretty much had a fit about it because, let me tell you something. If I had listened to party bosses my whole life, where I would be, right? And I think she should tell any party boss who tells her not to primary to take a long walk up a short pier. I think she should do exactly what she wants. I don't think that she's going to be successful. I think Chuck Schumer has a tremendous storied career in New York City. I think that he will run a very effective campaign. And I don't think that the Congresswoman has been particularly effective in Congress yet. There's no question that she is, a phenomenal representative of the progressive wing in the Democratic Party. She is a great spokesperson. And you know what? She pushes Democrats where they need to be pushed. I think that she is a really great person to have in my party. And even though I don't necessarily agree with her on policy proposals, I don't necessarily agree with her for an approach to politics, I do have a tremendous amount of respect for what she has done. Unfortunately, I do not think that she would be successful. And I think that we only need to look to former Congressman Joe Kennedy in Massachusetts to see how something like that would play out.
That's a good point. Rachel, what do you think? I mean, this could be a symbolic stand. It could be a legitimate get out the vote effort there. I mean, primary elections are very different. Look, the state of New York and its politics is actually kind of fascinating. We do upstate and New York City and all that. I've taken a look a couple of times, but we should note, I mean, some of those challenges against Cuomo and others didn't necessarily work out, especially on the statewide level. What do you make of what such a move might mean? I mean, would it be the wise move? Because it would be like a real political test of, you have somebody with legit star power here, but it could face the bulwark of an actual primary electorate.
Well, I think the first question is, why would she not, go down this road? Even rhetorically, right? This is where her power is going to come from. Schumer is scared out of his mind that he's going to be primaried from the left. That makes her more powerful as a House member than just about anything else. And so, yes, she should keep her powder dry, regardless of what she actually intends. This is the threat of a primary is a very powerful muscle in politics. But, I think all of you are right. New York State, where I'm from, is a machine party town, right? It's very difficult to mount any kind of sustained primary challenge against any kind of establishment, Democrat or Republican. And the Republican Party doesn't really exist in New York, but we're still there a little bit. But I think, again, it also goes to the type of politician she wants to be, because a statewide race in any of these machine party towns like California, Illinois, New York, even Texas to some degree, requires certain trade-offs. And so she has to decide, is she going to be an outsider candidate that's going to have a very hard slog Or is she going to be willing to sort of make those trade-offs, cut those political favors, make those deals that will get her the statewide support that she would very much need? She may not be ready to make those choices. And look, she's 31 years old. She's got some time. But again, her political power right now comes from the specter of a primary challenge from the left toward Chuck Schumer. She shouldn't back away from that.
Yeah, Jen, Rachel makes a really great point. We've already seen the way that just this threat kind of hanging out there in the ether has impacted Schumer. He came right out and said, hey, we ought to cancel $50,000 in student debt, got behind that initiative. So he's clearly feeling the pressure. And when you have the pressure on such a significant, powerful figure, potential majority leader, depending on what happens in Georgia today, that in and of itself can force a lot of change here. The other thing is, I mean, I would say, and I'm sure she feels like, hey, they told me before when I ran against Crowley, the machine was behind him. You don't have a shot in hell. Who's going to show up for you? So I'm sure she feels like, hey, I've been here before. I've been counted out before. And maybe, yeah, statewide is a different deal, but maybe I could employ some of those same tactics to pull off another upset.
I think we also need to look at this in the opposite direction, too. This could be a significant risk for her that I think that she's calculating. Like, yes, maybe there's some fire under, Senator Schumer to decide differently about policy approaches with the specter of a threat from the left. But what about the other way around? I think that a lot of AOC's power right now comes from the fact that it hasn't really been tested since she's been elected, right? So if the argument from, what I'll affectionately call the progressive left is, hey, you guys aren't putting these policy proposals on the table. The centrism and the moderate Democrats are killing the party across the country. And then she goes and she runs on the platform that they've been pushing Democrats on statewide in New York and loses in a primary. I think that could significantly hurt her star power and the progressive left nationwide. So I think this is a risk on both sides. I don't think it's something that, she's necessarily willing to, and I'm speaking completely out of turn here. Obviously, I've had no conversations with her about this. I think that it is an extremely significant risk for her. I think she's in a very good position right now. There was even some consternation, within the progressive community over the last couple of weeks about why she's not pushing for certain policy proposals. And I thought one of her answers was really astute. There's a reality on the ground in Congress about how you get things done and how you get things passed. If she has to do that type of explaining in a primary, I think it could hurt her. And I don't necessarily know that she wants to take that risk right now.
Yeah, no, I think you're right, Jen, which is that whenever it ultimately comes to a test, let's say that it didn't work out, then I actually think you become less powerful, diminish your national brand, because that's what she is right now. She's a national star, and that could, actually come and impact that. But we'll see. That's the great fun of this business. We'll be right back, guys. Stick with us.